Well, it was 1 for 3 on the bet slip. Mike saved us. He's so hot with his hot picks. Overall, it's $100 profits. Let's recap the Japanese Grand Prix and look ahead to the Chinese Grand Prix. All right, Mike. It pains me. I'm on such a cooler with these hot picks. And look at this guy's grin. Look, I know you've been so excited to get in here just to rub it into my face. But congratulations, Logan Sargent finishes last, classifies last. It took a lot to get there, but kudos where it's due.
This might be the best day of my life.
The floor is yours,
might be the
friend.
best day of my life. I don't know. I don't know how to feel. It's just really, it's a good feeling. I when we started doing this, I was like, the reason I like doing it is not because of the betting and trying to win money and all that type of stuff. I like being right. I just like, the idea of being right is it feels so good, right? You said the floor is mine. Mm-hmm. But what I've started to really enjoy more so than the feeling of being right is proving you wrong. That's way more fun than making the right bet and winning money and just, hey, maybe I do know something about what I'm talking about. No, proving you wrong is the greatest thing at the same time. Now, don't love the fact that your McLaren top 6 hot pick didn't hit, which you were hoping was going to be a total layup. Hey, we doubled down, tripled down on McLaren in some ways. We'll talk about that. That was stupid. That was stupid. We're dumb. We made a mistake. It is what it is. You got to take it on the chin. But
we'll get to the McLaren.
But I did save us. I saved us totally, man.
You did.
Right?
And that's why, I'm happy to have you here. I hate losing these hot picks. I wouldn't say I was wrong, though. Every concern I voiced about your hot pick happened. The Saubers spent minutes in the pit lane. They spent so much time. Zhou just hit his limit. Like, he hit the maximum. And they say, okay, you've spent too much time in here. It's time to retire, which helped 100%. You. There was a 4-car pit stop, a race in the pits where Logan dropped 2 places. Yuki gained 2 places. Yuki ends up bringing that position home into the points. I don't think Logan does that. You even had a Logan Sargent crash where he just miraculously stops it in the gravel, finds reverse, and then from then on, okay, he's last place. Like, congratulations. Everything I thought would happen happened. You still win.
I still win. Yeah, and I win because, again, when you're making a bet, and we talked about this a lot, actually, on the last couple of shows, we're trying to make a bet where you maximize the value for something that you think is going to happen. So when I saw it sitting at plus 550 this week, right? Like, I'm not like, hey, is there a scenario in which he doesn't finish, classifies last? Yeah, but I was still confident or I was comfortable with the plus 550. That was the real value that existed there because we saw, you and I checked, right? When we were doing the show, we checked before. Well, I think I checked actually right before race time. Like, I checked at like 12:45 a.m. here, local time. And it was still plus 250, him and Zhou Guanyu, right?
Yeah.
So I got 3 extra points on it. I mean, again, if he doesn't finish in last, then we lose the plus 250. It is what it is, right? But that's why I felt so confident in it. It's more so I felt confident in the price that I got it at. You know what I mean? That's what really boosts that feeling.
I agree. I agree. Hey, it was a great pick. Clap it up for Mike. He's on a roll with
some
the hot
call
picks.
Me a savant,
but
you could.
I tried to do the exact same thing, dude. I thought
you went the wrong way.
I thought I was getting great value on the McLarens. Midweek.
I did too. I actually did too. And then when Norris qualified third, I assumed that was going to be and Piastri started in the top 6. I mean, again, let's talk about the McLaren because they bamboozled us. They bamboozled themselves. I don't know what the first pit stop with Norris was about. I get they were trying to cover off. We were trying to cover off Checo, right? Was that the first one? Or sorry, cover off Sainz. They were covering off Sainz. The first one that they did.
No, the first one made no sense. He came in 3 laps before Sainz. It's like they were covering off Alonso, who was on a Alonso's soft stint went longer than Norris's first medium stint. That, to me, like, hey, we want to do these recaps. When we're wrong, we're wrong. You could argue we were wrong on McLaren. I think McLaren just screwed up the entire strategy this weekend.
I was trying to think about that too when I was lying in bed trying to fall asleep after the race, and I'm like, what? I had 2 thoughts on that. I had 2 thoughts on it. So one was Did they screwed up the strategy. I think they did. Like I still can't really
They
I
did.
can't
Yeah.
rationalize the decisions they made. But one thing that I think we need to remember, and we could have been wrong on this, is that strategy, you can make really bad strategy calls when you have a bad car. And you can make really good strategy calls, or your strategy looks really good when you have a good car. Like Ferrari, they do a two stopper and a one stopper. Oh, look at that. They both work. You know what I mean? When you have a good car, you can't, your strategy
Right.
looks good. It's the same with a driver, right? Like sometimes the driver looks way better in a good car and they look way worse in a bad car. And it's the same thing with the pit wall and the calls. And I think the problem this weekend was that McLaren just didn't have a good car. I think that was the issue ultimately in the end.
Once it got 10 degrees warmer for
Well,
the
that was part of the
race,
problem.
they no
That
longer
was
had a
part of the
good car.
problem.
And I think they got really worried with
They
that.
did.
That caught
They
us
did.
off guard. No one was expecting, no one said, hey, it's going to get
Yeah.
warmer tomorrow. So I think when they get there in the morning or afternoon, I suppose, maybe in
Yeah.
Japan, and they see it's warmer, they just went into panic mode. And they go, we gotta do a short medium stint right at the start because the mediums
Yeah.
aren't going to last. And then they find themselves with Norris and Leclerc, and then they decide in the moment to go, actually, we're going to follow Leclerc's one stop strategy and follow him into the pits. But you just gave him 22 seconds from your first pit. They totally bottled the strategy, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
But again, I'm still now I'm revisiting all those thoughts I had before, and I'm like, yeah, like they did. But again, I think it's because so you get concerned about the higher dag because of the higher temperatures, but that's because you don't have the same level of trust in the car that obviously Ferrari did when they went with split strategy. It looks like they went into the race with signs on a two stopper and Leclerc on a one stopper,
Yeah.
and they executed it the way that they wanted to. I think that's the problem is that we thought we were going to get the McLaren from a couple of months ago at Suzuka in similar temperatures, right? Like again, they did it close to the race was closer to the end of the year. It was warmer. It was ambient temperature and track temperature was similar between the two races. McLaren was 2 and 3. Now, when you look back at that, you think maybe they were just getting flattered by Mercedes and Ferrari being totally lost. Mercedes still totally lost, but now Ferrari with a better car, just a better car than McLaren, all of a sudden like that it's hard. It's hard to make the right strategy call. Maybe they weren't ever going to beat them. That might have been the case. And we were wrong. Like that's it, right?
So that's where I
Yeah.
would go. That I think we were less wrong about McLaren. I think this is the same McLaren we saw in Japan, except for they really bottled their strategy. Where we were wrong is the Ferrari. The
100%.
Ferrari has no more
No,
flaws.
100%.
Tire degradation is not an issue for
No.
Ferrari. An increase 10 degrees warmer on race day, not an issue for
No.
Ferrari.
High speed?
They didn't. I didn't hear it commented on the broadcast. Sainz, that monster second stint that
I
Sainz
know.
did, where they were like, "Oh my god, he's still going on mediums." That was a used
I
set of
know.
mediums he
That's
went on to.
crazy.
That wasn't a
I
new
know.
set even.
Dag just not a
So
problem for them.
we
Oh,
were
100%.
wrong.
I'll take it on the chin.
We were wrong about
Definitely.
Ferrari.
We take it on the chin. We were wrong about Ferrari. We'll see how wrong we are with those future picks. I mean, now that future of Ferrari versus Mercedes. I mean, we got to hope for some sort of McLaren like
It's over.
No, I mean, we said that, buddy. I felt good about the Alpine bet last year, and McLaren had a
No, I know,
absolutely
but I had
unheard
this.
of revolution. It's not impossible for Mercedes to do something like that. It isn't. It's not impossible. They have the resources, and
It
if everybody's pulling in the right direction, they could, right? But do I think it's going to happen
I,
now? It's
maybe I don't
probably
know.
less likely. No.
I had the thought today that in hindsight it's going to be 2020, but Lewis is leaving Mercedes for Ferrari. He knows more about the cars than we do. That should have been an indicator to just say, "Don't bet
No,
on
well, we talked
Mercedes."
about that
Lewis
though.
is jumping
Yeah, no,
ship.
we talked about it. I mean, I think you have to keep part of it is that he he's a the best F1 driver ever. So he has an enormous ego, even though he doesn't always show it. So I think regardless of he was hurt by they didn't listen to him in for 2 years, for 3 years, I guess they didn't listen to him. So
In 22.
I don't think
Right,
any
right.
amount of improvement was going to change his mind. Really, ultimately in the end, I think his feelings were hurt. He good for him. Fuck him. Like they did. Why do you not listen to the 7-time world champion? Like it is what it is, right?
But I agree. Is that not an
No, but I don't
indicator
think that
that Mercedes is
no, I
falling
don't think
apart?
that that meant though that that our logic behind taking Mercedes was that we actually did not think that they were going to perform well at the beginning of the year. To be honest, I don't want to get scared off.
Right.
It's happening the way that we kind of thought it was going to happen. There's still there's another 20 races that have to happen, right? And if you see the upgrades
Yeah.
come and they do start to get more out of the car, it's not impossible that they climb back in it. Again, McLaren climbed back in it,
It's not.
right? They did. It's not
It's not
impossible.
impossible.
It's not
Okay.
impossible.
Okay. We're
No,
not
we're not
dead.
dead. I'm not
It's
willing to
not a
put it.
dead bet.
What
Okay.
you know what it would make me feel better at the very least is if the delta starts to shrink instead of continues to grow at some point, right? Then we can at least say, hey, we were on plus money.
Yeah.
We were trying to find a value bet. That was what it was, because it was a plus money bet if I'm not mistaken, right? I think we got plus. I think we got plus money.
But they're not bringing upgrade. They're not bringing upgrades until.
Well, they got to figure out.
Yeah, it was
They
plus
got to figure out
120.
what they're doing,
They're-
right? They not bringing upgrades to Limitless because I think
They
they don't
what
know
they're
enough about what they want to do yet. I think they're still probably doing a lot of research about or in development on how they're going to.
doing.
Yeah,
Toto.
we think they're going to rebuild.
I said it on our podcast that these are testing sessions for Mercedes for us, and then Toto comes out. He's like, "Yeah, we're legit just testing right now. We have no idea."
So we'll have to. We'll be talking about that throughout the course of the season. But as an update on that bet right now, not looking good. It's not looking good. We didn't think it was going to look good at this point, 4 races in, but I would say it's not looking good, and there's no hope.
It's also we didn't put the bulk. We only put 150 on it. I mean, the Verstappen 15 plus back on track,
looking pretty good.
Back on track.
Do we want to talk about maybe the easiest bet ever made, and maybe we should have just put $1,000 on it? I mean, I don't really.
The Red Bull 1-2.
Like that was kind of
the fact that we got plus money when they started 1-2 on the grid. Yeah,
well, we get people were leaving comments, and they, I saw that one guy saying he took him at minus 150. I'm like, I think it closed at minus 175. Actually, I checked, it was minus 150. Then I think it closed at minus 175 right before the race. It's just like, how was that not a minus 250 bet? It's crazy.
When they release it,
because
they started 1-2. We're never going to find that again. We need Max to DNF again
to
find that.
1-2. I can't get over that. It's the craziest thing ever. No, you're right. It'll never open at minus 200 in the future, if it ever happens again.
And if we win $1,000 on that, Checo's hitting someone.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah.
There's no way he goes up the.
It's so true.
Didn't he go up the inside on both Mercedes?
And it was sick
in 130R. Like that's all gravel pit. If we were $1,000,
that's a very good point. He would be in the gravel for sure. It was sick though. He made a great move. It was awesome. There were some really
unreal,
wicked overtakes. Wicked overtakes.
How about Yuki in the S's?
That was amazing. Lance.
That's
like Lance did it.
Yeah, Lance did it. Yeah. How about Lance's radio call? It's a different category.
God, he's such a loser. It's hard to listen to.
Tough day for Lance.
I know. Tough day for Lance. Well, you
day for Lance.
Don't qualify P16, man. I mean, that's your problem. Come on. That doesn't look good for that car. I mean, again, I know Alonso is obviously it's the fifth fastest car, and Alonso is just so good. But it doesn't look good for him to not get it into the points, man. That's a really bad look there. Because the RB is not like Yuki had a great drive, man. That's good for him. He had a great drive. He was like kind of fell way back at the beginning, had a tough start and everything, but clawed his way back into it. Good drive. Got to give him credit on home soil. And we looked at that minus 150 for Yuki to win that group. I think it was like minus like 200 for him to get in the points,
Group
right?
4.
Yeah. He was group 4.
Something like that,
so we looked at that. We thought that was something, that would have been better than maybe doubling down and taking the Prince to try to win his group.
Yeah.
I mean,
tough day for Oscar.
You know what, man? He doesn't. So 2 things. One, we were wrong in the McLaren. We were wrong in the McLaren. It's tough to put him against the second fastest car in Leclerc in that group. I mean, that was our mistake, right? But he hasn't figured out the tires yet. And that might be, other than Bahrain, maybe that's the hardest. Maybe that is the hardest track to figure him out on. It could be, right?
Here's where I think we could keep in mind. Now, we probably won't find value because I think as a defender, he's not as bad with the tires. Where he loses his tires, and we've seen this in Saudi now, we saw it this weekend. He was chasing Alonso the entire time. He burns through his tires trying to attack, and then he can't get it done.
You know what's hard?
But when he, for example, when he starts in front, like Spa or Japan, I think he's not on his own burning through his tires. He's just struggling getting past really Alonso or Lewis Hamilton.
Well, the thing that concerns me, so I got to give him a bit of a break. Like I think for sure, attacking and managing is difficult. I mean, it's difficult in general, but he's having trouble with it for sure
Hmm.
because we've seen it. Like you're right. There's these massive periods of time during races where he's getting close and then he can't get by and then he wears him out. He's in the dirty air too long. I
Yep.
think the biggest problem is the McLaren DRS just doesn't exist. So that he doesn't get those, like, sometimes those free passes, even when it seems like he's got a massive tire advantage. He's still not really getting past some of the cars that, those top five cars, essentially the other top four cars from those constructors, right? He just can't seem, well,
Yeah.
not counting Stroll, but he can't get by the slower, theoretically, Aston Martin of Alonso. He's had trouble with the Mercedes. He can't even fight, or he can't even move forward against the Red
With
Bull
the
and the
same
Ferrari.
power
He's not even
units.
close. Yeah, and they've got the same power units, right? So
Yeah.
it's something with the DRS, man. It's
Yeah.
just so weak. It's really weak,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. It's interesting. Yeah. I or is it just straight line speed in
I
general?
think it's part of it, right? I think that's part of it, but they don't seem to have the same levels of synergy in terms of drag reduction that other teams do when that DRS is deployed. I mean, in general, you're right, it's a draggier car, but then it seems to get way worse in those situations where those are the critical passing points. And on a track like Suzuka, too, where you're only going to pass when you have the tire advantage, like that's pretty well the only way to do it. He would find himself in that position and then he still wouldn't be able to do it. Everybody else on track is doing it. And he gets stuck because he can't get
Yeah.
turn one. Right?
Well, he undercut Alonso by one lap off the
Yeah.
first stint, and they were probably thinking, "Hey, undercut's powerful.
Yeah.
Let's get him." He went on to hards. Then Alonso goes on to a new set of mediums, and then he's stuck there for 13 laps, and he
At
can't get
some
by.
point, though, he
So
has an advantage there, right?
yeah,
Like at some point, those hards come in, and he should be getting them. That's the thing. You would
you
think,
would
but
think
he's
so.
not because, we saw it happen a million times going down the main straight. Like he just can't
No,
get by him. He's not close enough. The DRS doesn't drag him close enough, and then he loses him. So I don't know. It's something to keep in mind. I think
yeah,
I think you take Piastri, he can be he can be competitive and fight in an environment where maybe there's more opportunity to pass and you don't have to rely so much on one. There's one DRS zone in Suzuka, right? So, right,
well, that's
yeah,
the nature of the sport now. Is you pass after the DRS into
yeah,
turn one. Like that's
and he
kind of
just
when the
didn't.
overtakes happen for
Yeah,
the
and
most
it's
part.
it's it's this is a good thing to keep in mind, obviously, for future tracks when we get in this type of. I'm trying to think of somewhere else where it might be kind of like this in some way, but it might just be uniquely a Suzuka thing. I don't know, but not a good bet. I'll just take, man. We got to take it on the chin,
Baku comes
yeah.
into mind. He might stay close the whole lap and then just can't get it on the straight. Just gets
It's not a
stuck
good bet.
there.
I'll take it. It's fine. Like sometimes you screw up. We still made money. I don't know. We made bad bets and we still made money because
I
I'm a
know,
savant and I see the future.
but we're here to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
clap it up
Yeah.
for Mike, everyone.
Just
Clap
give
it
the.
up. But we're here to be hard on ourselves on what we
You
get
have to
wrong
be.
or what we're
Yeah,
not right on. So
you
that's
have to be.
yeah,
And the
we
Yuki
have to
thing,
be.
like again, I was thinking about it. I'm like, fuck, we should have just minus 150. Should have diversified. Maybe cut the Piastri bet. I like the Lando bet because it helped us cover off disaster with Checo in some ways. Realistically,
Yeah,
it wouldn't have, but that maybe not needing to double dip on Piastri and we could have looked somewhere else on the grid. The Yuki, really though, in the conversation that we had, the only other bet that we really considered was Yuki. And realistically, I mean, again, he's not the 10th fastest car. Like Lance Stroll should be there. So that threat always existed ultimately in the end, right?
yeah.
I don't know.
The other one that we talked about that I wrote down was the Aston Martin over Mercedes
True. Yep.
because Aston brought
Yep.
upgrades. Alonso started
Yep.
ahead. We didn't love that it was 2v1 and the unknown of upgrades on a
Yeah.
race day. Turns out they
Yeah.
work.
Work. I mean, like they obviously, yeah, they definitely worked. I think. I don't know if I don't think they're giving Aston Martin like a massive advantage over. I mean, Mercedes is just like they were.
No.
It took a. They could have probably. Nah, I don't think they ever were going to be able to get Alonso, considering Piastri couldn't. But like, look what they did from a strategy perspective during the race. It was insane, right? But this goes back to
Yeah. They were
your
trying
your
things all
strategy
from the
looks
start.
bad when your car's bad. Like that's just kind of goes back to my point, right? Ultimately,
It's a good
right?
point.
You
It's a good
try all
point.
these different things and none of it works because the car just isn't doing
Actually,
what
that
you want it
okay.
to do.
I've been waiting to bring up a thought that I
Ah,
had, but actually this it kind of
what?
ties in. I was going to suggest that the Ferrari power unit is no longer the clown show power unit and that's been given to Mercedes. Now, to your point, maybe the Mercedes looked good over the past couple of years, so Ferrari looked like clowns. But hear me out. The Ferraris have been nailing their strategy. They literally did a one-stopper and a two-stopper in this race, made the medium tires look amazing. Haas has been functioning very well this year, turned a new corner. They were fighting for points. They've been qualifying well. Sauber, I don't count because they've left the Ferrari family. Audi's turning into a manufacturer.
Sure.
Right? They're not
they
part
still,
of the Ferraris anymore.
they still have a
moving
Ferrari
forward.
power unit. But go ahead. Whatever.
But they're not part. They're still part of the clown show. They don't get to move to the future with Ferrari. They're still the clown show. Sauber, go back to Alfa Romeo. Yeah, they can't even do pit stops. Now we got the Mercedes. Okay, so both Mercedes clown show, trying different strategies. They don't know what's going on. Toto's going to races he wasn't supposed to go to. The Williams might not be able to put one car on the track in China. And the McLarens just bottled their entire strategy. You've got Stroll racing in another category and then Alonso makes his own, he does his own thing. He makes his own strategy on the fly. So I take him out of it.
I don't think I get what you're saying. I don't think it's all entirely tied to the power unit performance because I don't think that the deficit is that big. I think the Mercedes issue is that just they don't understand the design philosophy needed to succeed. They could. I still think they could. Like I still think that we think
they don't
mechanically
this era.
I think mechanically they've made the right decisions, and now they have to go through all of the trials and tribulations that exist on the aero side, and they have to do that just during the final 2 years of these regulations, which is just a waste of time. They just screwed up for a really long time.
Is it though? I'm Googling right now. I don't think the aero is going to, like the aero doesn't change in the new regs. They just change the power unit, but they're not, it doesn't go back to like,
I don't know if they've, I don't know. Well, no, they're still, I agree. They're still going to have to, but I think they were talking about like movable aero pieces and stuff. There's going to be other elements of the new regs that I don't think are finalized yet, but
we don't know enough to talk about it right now.
We can't get into all that. Yeah. But there's going to be. But you're right. It's still going to be.
Like I know the cars are smaller and stuff like that.
But there's still going to be ground effect cars.
Yeah, it's not going to be like, hey, forget everything.
Well, there's still going to be ground effect cars. They still have to figure out the floor and all that, like 100%, right? But I think it's like I don't think it's a power unit thing. I think the Williams thing is not a power unit thing. It's a fucking Excel spreadsheet issue like that. You know what I mean?
No,
I know what you mean.
I'm stretching, but just to the point, like last year Haas was a joke and Ferrari was a joke, and now it's like Williams doesn't have two cars to put on the track. And
it is interesting how things have shifted so quickly.
And now McLaren's, I'm harping on it, but McLaren's screwing up strategy.
Yeah, McLaren. Well, I know McLaren screwed up strategy. It's so funny how I got enthralled by Stella's comments before the race, and I thought they were, well, you know what? Maybe if it's not 8-9 degrees hotter than they thought it was going to be, that they're in a better spot from a strategy perspective. I don't know.
That's
I agree.
What it came down to.
I still,
but I think that was all
I
mental.
know. I still don't want to say that though, because I don't think. I mean, again, if your car's that peaky, let's just say it this way: if your car's that peaky, where the temperature range, it's not like that's not a huge difference. It's pretty big. But if you're so peaky that you're going to just lose that much performance to the point where you can't pass Alonso's Aston Martin because of a couple of degrees in temperature, then we probably shouldn't have been on them. Ultimately, I guess in the end, you should be looking for the car that's going to be more well-rounded, and we should have been on for Leclerc at plus 100 to win that group. Yeah, that would have been good, right? And then not fading Sainz. We didn't fade him. It was an indirect fade on Sainz. He was started fourth, and Norris was third. But I don't know. What I found interesting was I was trying to find a reason for Lando's qualifying performance. So maybe I think he might have just had a really great lap in Q3, like to get P3. He could have. The other point.
I still
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Leclerc doesn't beat Lando in this race if they just keep him on his strategy. The only reason Leclerc beats Lando here is because they pull Lando in right.
Yeah, I know that,
and he already lost 20 seconds to Leclerc.
It never made sense, but
they kept two new hards, and then they did less laps on the hard than the Ferrari.
I agree, but I don't think they wasted the show. Like they talked it. Lando said it. Like, well, no, sorry, he didn't say it. I thought it was interesting. What was it? 10 or 11 laps in, you got the Sainz radio on the Sky Sports broadcast saying Lando's having trouble. Like 11 laps in, he was talking about Lando on the mediums having a hard time. And I thought, this is just Sainz. Is he just making a comment? Is that actually? And then you could see he was sliding. So like they were having a problem with degradation, and that's that's fine. Like, I mean, this is a high deg track, but the fact of the matter is,
It was the second stop that
I
bothered
know,
me.
I get that, but I think bringing him in, like whether or not he was just losing it. Like, it is what it is. Ultimately, in the end, they just didn't have the downforce needed. They didn't have the tire management that they needed. They were not better than Ferrari. It just wasn't a good bet.
Hmm.
We just missed it. We missed it.
No,
It is what it
no.
is. It's going to be hard to reconcile it
We
now
thought
moving forward. Like, when does that matter, right?
yeah. Well, where it matters is we thought, hey, Ferrari kept two mediums. That medium's not going to last the whole race. They're going to really struggle because of their choices. Dead wrong. Ferrari, like I don't know. Ferrari's flaw is they're not as fast as the Red Bull. Do they have another flaw? They could use a second driver like Sainz to really bring it home for the team. But
That's true. They really just need, if they had two Carlos Sainz's, man. Oh my God, Sainz's! If they had Sainz's, they would be
oh,
dialed for sure. If they had Sainz's, ooh.
Sainz, Sainz, the only driver. Yes, the only driver to podium every race he started this year so
I
far.
think now over in their Ferrari career, I think they both have the same number of wins and the same number of podiums. I think they're tied, which is just it's just making
Poles is the only thing that Leclerc
yeah,
can say, but he
it's
doesn't
just
convert
making
them.
my argument. It's he's making my argument so difficult. He's making it so difficult. Fucking guy, man, and he had such a good race.
I
He had
like,
such,
hey,
I
I'm
know
a
he had such a
fan.
good race.
I-
Ah,
I'm a fan of this. Oh, okay, I'm a fan of
I'm a fan of
Carlos, but I'm
Carlos.
a fan of the sport before we even started the show. So I consume other podcasts. I've been hearing a lot more of this. Maybe they're listening to us. There's no way, but I've been hearing a lot more of this discussion coming in lately on these other
With
podcasts.
the Science Leclerc debate, and maybe the
You heard it here
Science
first.
isn't as he's not.
Yep.
Uh,
Maybe
Man, hey, my plus 200 on Leclerc would
maybe Ferrari made
he
the
would have
wrong
finished
choice.
a position behind him. It would have been a we would have enjoyed it at least if we took that matchup plus 200 to go from what eighth to fourth.
You're never. You
I
would
would
have
have lost. It would
lost.
have been hard, but it would have been
I would have. Yeah,
well,
I
it would
would
have
have
been
loved
more
that.
enjoyable than watching fucking Piastri struggle to get by the only car that he had to get by the whole race.
It really sucked
That
watching
was hard.
Piastri.
That was hard.
That sucked.
I
Lando, I chalked it up to the
yeah.
pit
Well,
stop.
that's right. The point I was thinking of was before on Lando. So he gets P3 and we go, okay, perfect. It's just like last year. And I think Stella said it after the race. Maybe I read it somewhere because they were talking about that. And so the slow speed elements in Suzuka should have been well, they kind of were really what caught them out ultimately in terms of so Deg was tough, but then they were really bad through the slow speed sections. And I think it was Stella saying, yeah, like when you get on the new soft tire in qualifying, it just like totally masks all those deficiencies. So that's maybe something we got to pay
Mm,
attention for in the future because we've seen this before where they talk about throwing the throwing the map over some of the tracks moving forward and saying, yeah, these sections are going to be tough for us because they're slow speed, and that might not matter in qualifying over one lap on the soft tire. So if we see Lando and Piastri up the order, but there's a problem maybe with Deg over the course of the race. I'm trying to think of one that's coming up that might be similar to that, but it's just something to pay attention to. Like maybe they are out of position just because of a little bit of a balance issue with the McLaren, right? Maybe it's just has a
yeah.
bit of and
Yeah.
Lando's a really good qualifier. He's a good one lap driver, but and he's good at managing the tires. It just obviously was in a position where he didn't have the car just wasn't in the right window. Man, maybe it's temperature. I don't know. They talked all last year about it being, the proper temp. I just it is what it
I
is.
it
It's tough. It's tough.
it literally could shake down to it was
Yeah,
warmer
I
than
know.
everyone thought
I
it was
know.
going to be. That put them into they panicked about what they were going to do about because they knew it was bad for their car. But dude, it's not. We learned from Spa. This isn't the same thing as us betting on, hey, we need
No.
rain and it's going to be
No,
great.
that's different.
We looked
We
at the
did. I know.
forecast.
It's not the same thing.
No one said it was going to get
No.
warmer.
No.
So,
It's not
but
the same thing.
maybe, yeah. The fact is, when we bet heavy on McLaren, Mother Nature listens and
Yeah.
she goes, "Oh, well, what do you need to
That's what
not make
it
that
is
work?"
true. I'm not going to it is we still made the wrong bet, and that is part of it for sure, is the variables that we're discussing, the temperature change, all that type of stuff. But I think that again the real issue was overvaluing the poor qualifying performance by Ferrari and undervaluing the performances over the
Mhm.
previous three races. Like they're the second fastest car. I think maybe we were debating what that margin really was. Like maybe we got to this track and it's more high speed and they had struggled here previously over the the last 2 years of the technical regs struggled. Yeah, it's a high speed stuff. They were never really great in the high speed stuff. And
Yeah.
now the car's good in it's all in all corner types. It's good in. It's good with DEG. It doesn't blow up, right? I mean, again, that's everybody saying, "Well,
Yep.
tire for our strategy."
It's
They're
reliable.
Fred Vasseur's got it all figured out. I mean, he made the car better, and now the strategies. It's just way easier to come up with. You can do any
You
strategy you want when your car is sick. You can do anything, right?
Yep.
So
You froze there for me. I hope it's good for the show, but I caught the end of it and I got what you were saying. Their car is good, so strategies
nice,
look good.
like that.